All right, let's get into it. We're looking at a stack of documents today that circle around one very specific, very familiar piece of real estate, the terminal.
Right.
You know, that black box with the blinking cursor that we all ostensibly love, but also, secretly dread when things go sideways.
The command line. It's the bedrock of development.
Exactly. But here's the thing. For decades, that blinking cursor has been, well, dumb. It waits for you to type. If you make a typo, it yells at you. It has zero initiative. But today, we're looking at the Kimi Code CLI by MoonshotAI. And as of today, January 28, 2026, they just dropped version 1.3.
Which is a pretty significant version number. It's not a .01.
It is. But I have to be honest with you, right out of the gate, I see AI in the terminal, and my skepticism radar goes way off.
Sure.
I've seen a dozen tools that promise to write my shell scripts, and half the time they just hallucinate a flag that hasn't existed since, 1998. So convince me, what is Kimi doing that isn't just glorified autocomplete?
That's the right place to start, because most tools we call AI assistants are purely reactive.
Reactive how?
You type some code, they suggest the next line. They're just predicting text, Kimi is fundamentally different because it's designed as an agent with autonomous planning.
Okay, autonomous planning. That sounds great in a marketing deck, but what does that actually mean when I'm trying to fix a bug at, 11 p.m.?
It means it operates in a loop. It doesn't just spit out code and hope for the best.
Yeah.
It creates a plan, it executes a shell command, reads the output, including the errors, and then it adjusts its next step. It's the difference between a tool that guesses what you want to type and a tool that can actively investigate the environment to figure out what needs to be done.
So it's basically implementing a react, pattern, reason, and act.
Precisely. It can read your code, sure, but it can also fetch web pages to look up documentation. It can run tests. It can iterate. It's trying to bridge that gap between coding assistant and, a junior developer.
Okay, I like the sound of that, but let's talk about the friction. Because if I have to learn a whole new shell or switch context constantly, I'm just not going to use it.
Of course.
I live in Zish. I have my plugins. I have my muscle memory. Does Kimi want to replace my entire shell?
No. And that's a really crucial design choice here.
Yeah.
Kimi is built to integrate. It has this thing they call shell command mode.
Okay.
The whole idea is that you can toggle the agent on and off without ever leaving your flow.
The docs mention a specific shortcut, Ctrl-X.
Right. So you're in your terminal doing your normal thing. You hit Ctrl-X, and you're effectively handing the controls over to the agent. You can ask it to do some complex operation. It does it, and you're still in that same environment.
But there's a catch, isn't there? I was reading the notes on that mode, and it mentions built-in commands like cd. They don't work.
That is a classic technical limitation of wrapping a shell, yeah.
Why is that?
When the agent runs a command, it's often spawning a child process or a subshell. So if that child process changes directory, it doesn't affect the parent process, which is your actual terminal.
Right.
So yeah, you can't use the agent to navigate your file system and expect to, stay there when you toggle back.
Which, annoying, but I guess it's understandable from an OS architecture perspective.
It is, but they do address the integration friction in another way, specifically for ZS users. There's a plugin, Kimi Code CLI.
I saw that. It installs through the usual Oh My Sish custom plugins folder.
Exactly. By adding it to your DSRC, you're not running a separate Kimi application distinct from your terminal. You're effectively patching your shell to have a brain. You hit Ctrl-X at your normal Z prompt, and the agent is just there.
Low activation energy is key. If I have to open a separate window, I'm already losing focus. Speaking of separate windows, though, let's talk about the other place developers live, the IDE. Because honestly, I probably spend maybe 30% of my time in a raw terminal. The rest is in an editor. Does Kimi work there, or is this strictly a CLI tool?
This is where we get into some really, really interesting architectural decisions. Kimi isn't just, hacking together a plugin for VS Code. It supports something called ACP, the Agent Client Protocol.
ACP. Okay, we have so many protocols these days. We have LSP, the language server protocol, which everyone knows. That's what gives us the red squigglies when we mess up syntax. Why do we need another one, ACP?
Well, think about what LSP does. It analyzes text. It's static. It knows about syntax trees and things like that. ACP is all about agency. It's a protocol designed to let an AI agent actually control the editor.
Control the editor? You mean like moving the cursor?
Moving the cursor, opening tabs, running terminal commands inside the IDE's terminal, creating threads in an agent panel. It's a bidirectional pipe for action, not just for analysis. and Kimi supports ACP right out of the box.
The source material I saw mentions Zed and JetBrains specifically.
Yes. And the configuration for it is fascinating because you're basically just telling your IDE, hey, I have an agent server running locally. Here's how you talk to it.
So you just point the config, whether that's settings.json in Zed or that ASP.json in JetBrains, to the Kimi executable.
Right. With the app argument, it treats the CLI tool itself as a local server.
Huh.
And once that handshake happens, the Kimi agent lives inside your IDE panel. It has the same capabilities, planning, fetching web pages, running commands, but now it's context-aware of the file you're editing.
That distinction between LSP and ACP feels really important. We're moving from tools that read code to tools that can actually act on code.
That is the shift. But if we really want to talk about acting, we have to talk about the other acronym in the documents, MCP.
Model Context Protocol.
This is, in my opinion, the most powerful part of the entire stack.
Okay, break it down for me. Because Model Context Protocol sounds like something I'd skip right over in a doc file. Why should I care?
You should care because LLMs, large language models, are generally trapped in a box. They know what they were trained on, and they know the text you just pasted into the chat. They don't know the state of your computer, they don't know your database schema, and they certainly don't know the status of your Jira tickets.
They're context blind to the real world.
Exactly. MCP is the standard for breaking down that wall. It lets you mount external tools and data sources as servers that the agent can then query.
And the Kimi CLI has a specific subcommand for this, Kimi MCP. And looking at the examples they provide, this isn't just theoretical. They list some pretty wild integrations.
The linear.app integration is the one that really highlights the potential here.
Linear, the project management tool for issue tracking.
Right. The example shows adding a linear MCP server using OAuth. So you run Kimi MCP add.auth linear.
So let's play this out. I authorize Kimi to look at my linear instance. What does that actually let me do?
Theoretically, it enables a project manager workflow right in your terminal. You could say to Kimi, grab the high-priority bugs assigned to me, read the reproduction steps, and see if you can reproduce the error in the local environment.
That is slightly terrifying, but also incredibly useful.
It connects the why, the ticket, with the how, the code. The agent can read the bug report, understand the context, and then using its autonomous planning, start digging through the code to find the mismatch.
It effectively removes the Alt-Tab tax. I don't have to switch to the browser, copy the ID, switch back, find the file.
Exactly. And it gets even more granular with that Chrome DevTools example.
Yeah, explain this one. This uses Stadio via NPX. What's that about?
So Chrome DevTools has a protocol that allows external tools to inspect the browser state. By connecting this through MCP, Kimi can technically see the console output of your running web app.
Wait, so if I'm building a React app and it crashes in the browser?
The agent could see the stack trace in the Chrome console, cross-reference it with your local source code, and propose a fix, all without you having to copy-paste the error log.
That's the aha moment. That's where it stops being a chatbot and starts being a colleague. But I have to play the skeptic again here. We're giving this CLI tool a lot of access. Read-write on my files, access to my browser console, access to my authenticated project management tool.
It is a massive security surface area. You are absolutely correct.
If someone manages to prompt inject the agent through, I don't know, a malicious linear ticket,
Yeah.
could they exfiltrate data?
In theory, if the agent has internet access, which it does to fetch web pages and access to your local files, the risk is non-zero. That's why the autonomous part requires supervision. You're still the pilot. The agent is the co-pilot. You need to watch what it's doing.
So don't just run Kimi, fix everything, and go get a coffee.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Especially not on a production database.
Let's shift gears to the engine room. I want to talk about how this thing is built. Because when I think of high-performance CLIs in 2026, I'm thinking Rust, maybe Go.
Sure. Speed, memory safety, a single binary, all that.
But looking at the stats for Kimi, it's 99.1% Python.
It is.
Python for a CLI. Isn't the startup time usually painful?
Yeah.
Why would they choose Python?
Well, two reasons. One, Python is the lingua franca of AI. If you're building an agent that needs to process embeddings, handle complex logic, and interface with LLM APIs, Python is just the native tongue. It makes the development cycle for the AI logic itself much faster.
Okay, but what about the user experience? Nobody wants to wait 3 seconds for their terminal prompt to reappear.
And that's where the tooling comes in. The source physically highlights the use of You've.
I've been hearing a lot about this.
It's a Python package installer and resolver, but it's written in Rust. It is incredibly fast. The instructions explicitly say you've run Kimi. By using Uv, they're mitigating a lot of that traditional Python slowness. It handles the environment setup and execution with near-native speed.
So they're using Rust to power the Python.
Exactly. It's a very modern Python stack. And if you look at the repo structure, it's quite modular. The makefile has commands for testing specific components like cosong and powerhouse.
Cosong and powerhouse?
They seem to be internal module names. It suggests they've separated the core logic, the brain, from the CLI wrapper. And that's just good architecture. Right. It means the agent logic isn't hard-coded into the terminal interface. It explains why they can support ACP for IDEs and the CLI mode at the same time. The core logic is decoupled.
And it's all open source. Apache 2.0 license.
With 4.5K stars and 443 forks. That is a very healthy signal for a project at version 1.3. It means people aren't just starring it, they're forking it. They're trying to modify it.
And since it's Python, the barrier to contribution is much lower than if it were in, say, Rust.
That is a very good point. If you want the community to build plugins or MCP servers, Python is a much more accessible language for the average data scientist or AI engineer.
So we have a Python-based agent optimized with a view that uses MCP to talk to the world and ACP to talk to your editor. It's a lot of acronyms, but the picture is pretty clear.
It's a convergence, really.
But here's what I'm wrestling with now. We're describing a tool that is slowly abstracting away the actual act of coding. If Kimi is reading the ticket, planning the fix, or writing the code, what is my job?
That's the existential question, isn't it?
Am I still a developer? Or am I becoming a manager of a very fast, slightly unpredictable intern?
I think the role is shifting from writer of syntax to architect of context. Your job isn't to know the exact grep command anymore. Your job is to know what needs to be grepped and why. You're managing the information flow, getting the agent the right MCP servers, the right files, the right constraints.
So the skill ceiling doesn't necessarily drop, it moves.
Yeah.
You need to understand the system well enough to catch the agent when it's wrong.
Exactly. If you don't understand the underlying code, you can't verify the agent's plan. And if you can't verify the plan, you are just gambling.
And gambling in the terminal is a great way to delete your production database.
A very, very expensive way.
Well, for anyone listening who wants to see if they are ready to be a context architect, the project is Kimi Code CLI. It's definitely worth a look, even if just to see how Eve is changing the Python CLI game.
And check out that MCP implementation. Even if you don't end up using Kimi, learning how MCP works is going to be really relevant for the next few years of dev tools. Good advice. We'll leave it there. Keep your cursor blinking, but maybe let the agent do some of the typing. Thanks for listening.
Happy coding.